Getting ready to go?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. We are now live on Zoom at 7 p.m.
Thank you, Ben. Good evening. The first part of our meeting today will be the City Council workshop. I'm Pam Weatherby, Ward 3, representing, I'm the acting mayor right now. The mayor is going to be joining us via Zoom. And roll call, we have Molly, and we have Amber, and Paloma, and George. And Lee, are you online?
Lee isn't online yet.
He said he'll be
Is
around
that
in a
online
moment.
yet? Okay. And we also have the attorney, Christian. And
Gates.
What's his, I forgot his name.
Christian Gates.
Gates,
Yes.
I apologize. Christian Gates is online, our attorney for the evening, as Nick Ward-Willis is on vacation, and we have our city administrator, Chris White.
And we have Natalie Quinn, our city planner, for item number 2.
Okay, and Natalie Quinn. So first on the agenda, we have recognizing summer youth employment program participants, and Mark Price and Sam Britton are going to lead that discussion.
Hello, everyone. Mayor, City Council. We're here tonight. We're wrapping up summer, and this year we presented or ran a pilot program for youth employment in the spring and summer. That program was funded by a grant. Sam Britton's going to come up and give you some details on that program. As you know, you're going to be presenting some certificates. It was a pilot. We were excited about the outcomes. We're hopeful for future programs like this, and with that, I'll give you Sam Britton. She'll give you a little information about what we did this summer and spring.
Thank you.
And Mayor, for the 2 people out there who may not know who Mark and Sam are, Mark is our recreation director, and Sam is our recreation specialist, help supervisor. But she's a specialist too. She's actually really special.
Thank you. Thank you guys so much. So before I get started, I just want to say where the funding came from, because I can't mess that part up, and there's a lot of words. So the funding for this program came directly from Dutchess County, but more specifically from Dutchess County Department of Community and Family Services. They have a branch off of them called Dutchess County Workforce Investment Board, and this money kind of came through all of that branch there. So I'll start by saying in the spring, our department received a grant from Dutchess County Workforce Investment Board, which gave us the opportunity to hire 3 teens. Those 3 teens, the whole goal was to try to get them in the after-school program, to get them working with the youth, with the hope that after this they could maybe work at daycares or elsewhere. There's a lot that goes into getting through the OCFS permitting. So those 3 teens worked 15 to 18 hours a week for about 7 weeks, getting through all of the vigorous OCFS requirements. And I'm happy to say, at the end of it, they were all working at our after-school program, after-school employees. And I'd like to highlight Azriela Soto, who then went on to be a camp counselor and is now going to be working as an after-school employee, because she is now over the age of 18, and she'll be doing that as her job when she's in college. So that's pretty exciting. That's one of our after-school successes. And then that leads me into the summer. So the program was such a big success that we decided maybe we should try again and maybe double the numbers. We went from 3 to 6 youth. We worked with them for 6 weeks over the summer. And this was a little more challenging because we didn't really have a place to just plug them right in. So what we ended up finding is holes in the community that we thought we could fill with a little bit more employment. So we went with beautifying the city and improving the general overall atmospheric safety of our public spaces, which includes cleaning up garbage, getting the glass cleaned up, getting rid of the graffiti so it overall feels just a safer place to be. And in that, we also took care of a lot of other locations around the city, including Main Street and Hidden Brook. But before I go into detail on the positives of the summer program, I actually thought it'd be better to hear from someone who went through it, because I'm just the adult that made sure everyone was safe while they were at work. I was hoping Anastasia wouldn't mind coming up and giving a little bit about her experience working for the city during the summer.
Good evening, everyone. Before I get into the process of the job and everything we've accomplished, I just wanted to take the time to thank everyone who funded and supported this program. You know, without Sam applying for the grant, we wouldn't be here, and none of this basically wouldn't have been possible. So I'm truly grateful for the opportunity to be a part of it, and I hope you guys will continue to fund this program for next year. And it has been an insightful experience this summer. It has taught me so much valuable lessons, not only about the work we do, but also about myself and what I enjoy and what I don't, and how important it is to give back to the community. One of the biggest lessons we've learned is that no matter what challenges we faced, we've come out stronger, and we've always pushed through it. And we supported each other, and we just got the skills, the determination, and the strength to just keep going. Our work consisted of park maintenance, like Sam said, removing graffiti, stickers, and picking up garbage just basically everywhere on Main Street, Memorial Park. We also did South Ave. And on hot days, we went over watered Hidden Brook when, there was no rain, didn't rain for a couple of days. You guys know it was really hot. I also wanted to thank the workers from Sun River Health, Shot, his mobile gas station, the library, and Careful MD for allowing us to utilize their buildings when we were on Main Street and it was really hot. And we did a sports bra program, or like a project for Sarah, giving sports bras to women and children and sports teams who need it because of the price and stuff like that, because you guys know. It's very expensive, especially with everything that, we have other things to go on and buy. I also wanted to thank SYEP for taking the time to talk about budgeting and bringing in people with real life experiences and diverse professions. Just wanted to say that because I know that a lot of the times us high schoolers, we don't know how to budget money. So it was really helpful for them to, come out and give us the experience and the time to help us learn. My family has lived in Beacon for about 45 years now, so I frequently visit, and I've seen this town change within, just 16 years of me coming here and seeing it grow, especially Main Street. Main Street's gotten a lot of good businesses now, a lot of thrift stores, a lot of cafes, a lot of people coming into the town now. And it just made me have like a sense of pride, sense of perspective on how this town has come. Special thanks to Chris White and the mayor for the overall support and help through the summer. Thank you guys so much for giving me the time to talk.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So you want to do certificates, Sam? Yes. Very good. Yeah, and then I'll get a photo as you do each person. And then we'll do a little group thing. I'll go to the other side.
Which way should I stand?
That's perfect.
This is good?
Face them.
And loud. All right, I would love to present this first certificate to Anastasia Gusman. Thank you so much for your work this summer.
Why don't you stay up there and then at the end we'll get a quick photo.
All right, stay up here. All right, I'd like to present this next certificate to Joe King for working with us this summer. I would love to present this certificate to Elijah Mitchell for working with us for the past 6 years.
Elijah, can you turn with this?
I would love to present this certificate to Anibal Soto III, who worked with us for 7 weeks all spring long and is continuing to come work with us this after-school year. And this certificate goes to Asriel Soto, who worked with us during the after-school this past year and then graduated on to be a camp counselor and is now going to be an assistant at our after-school program. And last but absolutely not least, this certificate goes to Shay Tanaka for working with us this entire summer. The brutal key and always remembering to charge it.
And then if I could just ask you to move in just a little bit, let me get a photo.
Don't worry about it.
Do we want to give those? Yeah. Sam or Mark, do you want to take the two for the folks that weren't here?
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Great job. Thank you. Yeah.
And when you see the garbage cans that are newly painted in the parks, that's because they did that.
Okay. Nice.
So, and
Very
I
nice.
want this more. Sam told me a year ago I was going to hire her to beautify the city before we hired her, and she ended up doing
She
it.
did it. Nice. Thank you,
Thanks again,
Sam.
Sam. You did an
Thanks,
exceptional
team.
job.
Thank you guys, thank you all so much. Look forward to coming back again.
Thank
Sounds
you, Sam.
good.
Chris, since the funding came through from the county, could we maybe send a clip of this to
Absolutely. Yep.
just let them know how great the program was, especially I think Anastasia's.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
That'd be good. All right, on to our next agenda item, discussions of modifications to the transitional zoning district. And Natalie is going to be speaking about that online.
Good evening, everybody.
Hi, Natalie.
Hi. Yeah, so we're coming back. This is our second time in front of the council kind of talking about this. This is a reminder, I think, at the last meeting, we talked about the desire to kind of legalize and allow for more kind of two-family, maybe three-family, like smaller scale residential in areas just beyond the T district. So that is the analysis that we started, and I think leaving that last meeting, there were some requests for additional information that are in your packet this month. So you have, I think what we had asked for, what the council had asked for was kind of a better understanding of the existing land uses in these districts, right? So we had the zoning map, but what we wanted to understand is what are the actual uses existing there on the ground. I think there was also a request from council members to have a side-by-side comparison of the T district to the R15. So you have that in your packets as well, kind of comparing the bulk regulations and the permitted uses. And then some definitions just to help you as you're kind of going through that use regulation comparison. I think the long of the short, the short of it is, after looking at those materials and kind of the conversation we had with the council at the last meeting, the recommendation that you're seeing in my most recent memo is that it might, I believe it makes more sense based on the council's desires to look at modifying the R15 districts, which mean that sit just outside of the T district, rather than extending the T district. And I think why you will kind of the biggest justification for that is when you're looking at the bulk reg comparison and the use reg comparison, the bulk regs are very similar, I think, between the two districts. Where you start to see changes is in the use regulations, right? And so the T district does allow for, both districts allow for single family homes, so that gets to be maintained. The T district, however, also allows for two-family dwellings, multifamily dwellings, and artist-led workspace, as well as a few different commercial uses that you can see in that comparison. And so based on the conversation at the last meeting, where I think I sensed the most comfort from the council in terms of it makes the most sense for maybe, you know, normalizing some of the two families that already exist in this district, but there's not really a lot of commercial in these districts, and that might not be appropriate. So that's why we got to the end result of, rather than tweaking the T district and starting to come up with regulations about, you know, where in the T district different multifamily can be allowed or commercial uses, it made more sense to look at, I believe, tweaks to the R15. And the one other thing I just want to share with you, because this was not in your packet, I got an update, so I'm just going to share my screen and hopefully you guys can see this. is I did have the county assisted me with these maps, and we did do an extended out version of the land use map that you have in your packet. The one you had in your packet was focused just really on the R15s outside of the T district. I wanted to show you guys this one because this also captures, there's 4 R15 districts in the city. And so this captures, if you can see my pointer over here, this captures the small R15 district over on Meade and DeSoto. And then it also captures kind of the full R15 that is east of the Fishkill Creek. You can also see it in this image in my memo here. The county zoning map allows you to kind of turn off all the other. So I just wanted you to be aware of where all the R15 districts are. If we're going to kind of transition the conversation to talking about tweaks to that district, just wanted to make sure council was clear on that. And I think the one thing, the one analysis, and you have in your packet in my memo kind of an analysis of percentage of different uses, land uses in these that you were seeing in the R15, as well as parcel sizes. I think the one thing I will point out is we are seeing, it's definitely still 75% single family properties within the R15, but you're definitely seeing at least a quarter of the properties towards other uses. I think 1 in 5 is, a 2-family or a multifamily. And then you have some of the purple, which is manufacturing, you have municipal uses. The one district that I will say of the R15 that is a little bit different than the other 3 is this one out on Meade. So we might want to think about some kind of language in terms of proximity to Main Street. Because over here on Meade, you really are predominantly single family, which is maybe, I think there's 2 families over there. So that's the one kind of outlier of the district. So I think with that, I don't know if Mayor, you had any additional, I know we talked a lot about this. So I don't know if you had additional comments, or Christian. Otherwise, I think we can start kind of just working through some of the pros and cons and considerations of this shift.
Yeah, thank you, Natalie. If I could just add a little bit of history. So remember, this area around Main Street had been zoned RD3, which allowed 1s, 2s, and apartments. That was sort of an expectation of a very large-scale urban renewal. Only phase 1 of urban renewal occurred, which was on the west end. And so the urban renewal around Main Street did not take place. But the zoning was there, assuming it was going to be, a lot of urban renewal, a lot of density expected. So in the 90s, we saw this and said there were a lot of conversions of single-family homes around Main Street, and thought that was actually destabilizing. And so we switched from RD3 to R15. And the thing that, again, you can blame me, I had a lot to do with it. And the thing that we didn't think about, that we're now thinking about, is, but it was, 20 years of allowing conversions of 1 family to 2 to build some apartments. There's a fair amount of non-conforming uses. If you look on that map that Natalie provided, the 2s and 3s, they're pretty extensive on either side of Main Street. And they're also pretty extensive on the east side of the creek along East Main, right? And those of you who travel on East Main and Spring Valley know there's a fair number of 2, 3, 4 unit apartments there as well. And as Natalie mentioned, up on Meade Avenue and DeSoto, there are, virtually none. So we might want to be mindful of this, because the current zoning basically says all of those are pre-existing non-conforming uses. We may want to think about, something that adjusts for that. So I just wanted to add.
I think the direction to focus more on the R15 versus expanding the T makes a lot of sense. I know several of us probably walked through different areas of this. From what I saw, there are a lot of, I won't say a lot, but there are several kind of 2+ family units that are present. And I think in these areas, it would be disruptive to include commercial space. So I think that approach makes a lot of sense. I had a clarifying question, I think, for Natalie. Is there a definition of what we mean by multifamily somewhere, or is it just anything over 4 units?
I think based on, it would be anything over, I think Nick and I were talking about this, and maybe Christian has the answer. Your code distinguishes 1 family, 2 family, and then goes straight to multifamily dwelling. So I would say multifamily is everything over 2. So that would be 3, 4, 5, and up.
Okay,
And then the difference between homestead and non-homestead is the 4 family and up.
okay. All right. Yeah, I think that's one, and again, it sounds like, Natalie, you're going to prepare some recommendations. I think kind of making sure that we keep the fabric of a neighborhood while, allowing additional housing. And I think it maybe was Paloma or a couple of other people have mentioned this. We've had a lot of apartment housing. I think we want to balance out some additional family style housing. And I think this is a good opportunity to do that, but I just want to, not go too overloaded in these neighborhoods and keep it manageable. So that's why I was asking about what we mean by multifamily.
Yeah, so there's 2 options that I kind of wrote. This is on the last page of the narrative of the letter, right? And I think there's 2, and there's actually potentially a 3rd option for proceeding. So if we're now looking at amending the R15, I think what the council could look at doing is you could allow all of the 4 residential uses that are also permitted in the T district, right? And we see kind of each one of those existing to different extents, and that's the 1 family attached or semi-attached, 2 family, multifamily, and artist live workspace. The council could also decide that for this first initial step, maybe we're only allowing some of those. You don't have to allow all of the residential uses that are permitted in the T, right? So we could look at just allowing the 2 family, keep the 1 family, of course, allow the 2 family, and then also allow the artist live workspace, leave multifamily out for now, right? So leave the 3s and 4s. And then I think the other 3rd option that I'd want to talk to Christian and Nick about is there may be, for those ones that are, so say we don't move forward with permitting multifamily by right in the R15, there may be some provision that we could think about adding to the code that does allow a little bit more flexibility for already existing, for multifamily that is already in existence. So if something was to happen to that, I know we talked last time about if they're damaged or if there's fire, that you can't rebuild them because they're not permitted in the code. So we might be able, the 3rd option might be allow 1 family and 2 family and artist live workspaces, and then also allow some kind of provision that for buildings that are in existence as of this date that are multifamily, they can continue and rebuild to some extent. So I don't know, Christian, if you had thoughts on that last little aspect of the provision for buildings in existence.
Yeah, so that it would be essentially a carve out in the zoning code, because currently if you have a non-conforming use and you terminate that use due to it's being destroyed through a fire, you can't recontinue that use. You need to then turn it to a conforming use. If there's 50% or less of the building destroyed, you can continue that use, but you must begin reconstruction within 6 months. So we could provide a carve out that within the R15 district, multifamily that is destroyed through a fire could be continued, provided there is some safeguards. We could provide that there's site plan approval required. We could provide a time frame in which that construction needs to start so that it doesn't linger out there for a long period of time. And so that way it would be a replacement in kind as well. So essentially what the building was prior, you could build that again. So if it was a two-story, 3-story, you would be limited to that again. If you were non-conforming in any of the setbacks, you'd be allowed to go to those setbacks, but you couldn't expand any non-conformities. And so that is a carve-out provision that could allow multifamilies that are destroyed to be rebuilt, and it would just be applicable to the R15 district.
I think, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. You're probably going to say the same thing I am.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think that's an interesting aspect of it, and that's part of why I was struggling a little bit with saying no to certain aspects, because I think there are non-conforming uses there today that are, that seem to be just perfectly fine. So I would hate to have something happen and then lose those. But Molly, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I was going to add, Christian, could we, and I haven't, we haven't talked about it as a council yet, the way you framed it, you were applying it just to R15. Could we apply it to other zones in the city, if not the entire city, where currently non-conforming more than one family attached or semi-attached buildings exist?
It could be expanded, but we would need to evaluate what type of additional uses would be allowed if destroyed. If the residential uses, those are generally, don't have a serious impact on neighbors, but if it's a commercial use in a residential neighborhood and they're allowed to continue it, that might have more of an impact.
Yeah, I'm thinking specifically about residential uses. Maybe not just two families, but potentially it could be limited to just two families, but just wanting to know what our legal options are. So thank you for that for now.
I'm a little hesitant to apply these changes to the entire R15 district, and I was wondering if we should think about it doing it going back to what we talked about last week or 2 weeks ago, is expanding the T district to within a few blocks north and south of Main Street. Would it be possible to create a separate district in that area, which would allow 1, 2 family and artist live work, would not allow businesses, but it would be limited to those streets, as opposed to expanding it completely throughout all the R15?
Is that the distance option you were kind of referring to, Natalie, that we could base it on distance from Main Street?
Yeah, I think that was an option. I mean, I wasn't necessarily, I think there is always that, you see that very often in codes, that there's a provision that like this use, I think we have it in the linkage district, we have it used there somewhere that, certain uses are permitted only within X number of feet of, usually it's a roadway, right? So you could say Main Street, or you could say of the boundary of the T district. You could say different things like that. So that's definitely a possibility. I just pulled up this land use map so we can kind of look at this at the same time. Because I do think, I wasn't necessarily thinking of the distance as much for these closer R15, because you can see that you kind of get you're getting the multifamily all the way out here, especially down at kind of Franklin, Blackburn. You get it somewhere up in these. So I was more thinking of somehow trying to figure out a way to exclude the Mead Street R15, because that really just is not currently an existing condition there. I don't think that necessarily needs to be dealt with in the same way.
Yeah, one approach that you could take to do that is adjacency. We had originally talked about being adjacent to CMS, but if we're not expanding the T, then it's like, well, maybe it's the R15's adjacent to a T, which then would limit it down to either side of Main Street, would eliminate Mead Avenue, and I think it eliminates the east side of the river. The only thing we'd have to be careful if we did something like that is, remember, if you're not permitting, say, the 2 families on East Main and Liberty, as soon as they go away, they're gone, right? We lose them, as opposed to, unless we do that clause about how much time you have to build it back.
Yeah, I think that would cover that if it was lost through fire or whatever damage. And I'm not saying that it may not be a good idea to ultimately expand the R15 or these changes to the R15 throughout the city, but I'm sort of thinking more incrementally, and first dealing with Main Street and then expanding it further, possibly in the future.
Yeah, so I think it would be helpful if we could start with, so I guess I'm just trying to get a straw poll from the council, because I think our goal would be, I think a lot of this is easier to discuss and when we can kind of get into the wordsmithing of the language of the code. So I think mine and Christian's goal is to get a draft local law in front of the council by your next workshop on the 8th, so that you can look at that there. So I think if we could do a straw poll tonight about which way folks are leaning, I mean, we could even do like it's 2 family and multifamily. Like those are we could talk through the 3 different uses, the 3 different residential uses, right? It's 2 family, multifamily, and then the artist live workspace. I'm hearing comfort with two-family in general in terms of making that a permitted use within the R15, maybe with a adjacency or distance clause. Is that correct? Does anyone disagree with that?
I'm
I'd be
comfortable with
okay
that.
with that.
Okay. And then what about artist live workspaces? Are folks having thoughts about that, or also comfortable with the same provisions as two-family?
Can you give a little more? I saw that you put the description of artist live workspace in there. I'm still having a hard time wrapping my head around what's the difference between artist live workspace versus me moving into a single family with a garage and I'm an avid woodworker and I do my woodworking in the garage. Like, am I actually doing that in violation of code? Like, I'm unclear where the line is there.
It's really, I think if you have workspace, live workspace, you have, rather than it just being necessarily a studio that you use, you do have a little bit more flexibility of having people, I think, having customers come to that space, or persons working. Let me see, I'm trying to look for that, because
I saw there was like a teaching component in the definition as well.
Yeah. So I think you just have a little more flexibility to be actually operating your business out of that space. Let me see.
I think you can also live within the same space.
Right.
Yeah,
More
that-
like your
that-
living space can also
yeah.
be your
Yeah.
workspace.
Yes, that is one of the distinguishing features. It's a hybrid residential unit that can also be used for essentially an occupation, such as creating art or marketing that art once you have created it.
In the workshop, that would be more, there wouldn't be any living, it's just workshop where the business is. It seems similar to the artist studio, but
Yeah.
it doesn't have the living component, the home occupation component.
So an artist live/workspace is a specific provision of the code, and it's defined as a single residential unit, which unit is designed for and occupied as a combination of living, artist studio, and artist workspace with or without retail space for artwork for year-round residence by not more than 2 persons or at least 18 years of age, and of which at least one of whom is an artist in residence, and by not more than 2 children of said persons who are under 22 years of age.
Very specific.
The last part really threw me off.
It is a
Wasn't
very
expecting
specific definition, and there is actually a section of the city code that then, similar to how accessory apartments have their own section in the city code that discuss it, artist
Yeah.
workshops are similar in that regard.
Yes.
Now, the one thing that we were talking about as we were looking at the different houses is, since COVID, there's a lot of people who are working from home, even, it's 100% that they're working from home. Is that allowed based on, I know you're talking, the artist studio is allowed, but is office allowed?
So I think that office would be a bit different. When you go to the provision of the city code, it actually gives some very specific types of uses. The artist live workspaces shall not be used for classroom instructional uses, the storage of flammable liquids or welding. It shall not be conducted to cause noise, vibration. So it's really geared toward, I think, what we think of when we think of an artist in a studio creating something, as compared to more of in home occupation or home office. That is supposed to be a place where that artist lives, but also creates art under the city code's regulations. Not more than 30% of the area may be devoted to residential space. And so it has to have the necessities to live, has to have a sink, a stove, oven, and refrigerator, but the main purpose of it is for that creation of art.
Yeah, I think, Pam, to that question, so home occupation and artist studio are kind of using the same. So I think there's more definitions I could add to this list to make it even more clear. But home occupation, artist studio are considered kind of accessory uses. They're not primary uses, and those are permitted in all of the R1 districts in the T district. I think it's in, I'd have to look at the full, but I think in most districts. So I think this live work trend of people having their personal workspace would fall under, it's all this, as you can tell, there's a lot of specifics. But I think that would typically fall under kind of like an accessory use to this residential component, less than I think the other ones that Christian was going through in terms of the workshops and the artist live workspace, which are different definitions than that.
Yeah, exactly.
Like if someone was a therapist and worked from home, would that also fall under the office definition? Like the home occupation, could that fall under home occupation, or because they're inviting people in, that's separately regulated?
It does note social services or consulting.
Okay.
Sorry,
Because you're having
I'm
someone
not a
physically
lawyer.
visit your home. I
Have
didn't know
them
if that-
answer the
yeah, if that
question, sorry.
triggered.
Yeah, but I think, I mean, for the purposes of this, well, I mean, I guess we can consider whether we want those in all R15s. I think that could be more definitions we can look into. But I think right now, I think home occupation, artist studio will cover a lot. We can definitely look into that. I think you heard the definition for artist live workspace, which is one of the 4 kind of residential uses that we're considering for this. And I think you heard the definition from Christian that's very specific. So I guess from the primary residential uses, artist live workspace is considered one of those primary use, right, under the residential section. So is that, I guess, based knowing the definition now, is that something that the council feels comfortable thinking about permitting in the R15 districts, or is that maybe we're putting that more closely to multifamily, where we're a little bit unsure and maybe want to take a first initial step without that?
I think in terms of the spirit of the city as it's been built, allowing artist live workspaces in the R15 makes sense to me. And I would love to have a moment in workshop to look at it together. The last time I was looking at the definition of artist live workspace was when we were discussing 2 East Main, which was supposed to be entirely artist live workspace, but was not. And we discussed why that was unenforceable through our building department. So I want to make sure that if we're making that choice, we're doing it in a way that is actually functional. And we're actually doing it as a statement in support of artists.
Yeah, I'll say I'm fine with it, particularly if we have, and we don't have a lot of commercial within R15 right now, but we have some, and I think some of that, were it to be converting it into live workspace might be one option that's available for that space.
Yeah. And I think that thinking about the impact to neighbors, I think it comes up most with, like, imagine Beacon Open Studios, that folks who are making something in their homes and want to be able to share that with the community. I think that's a really positive example of the way in which an artist live workspace can work and function. And then in terms of, people doing something that requires loud machinery, we have noise ordinances. There are other parameters around how to manage that for your neighbors, in my opinion.
I have general comfortability with artist live workspace, the single family attached, detached, and then 2 family. So I think that the big one of talking about is multifamily, and whether we want to explore that as permitted, like permitted by right with potential stipulations on it in the R15, or hold off on adding that to the R15 for now.
I lean towards the option that you and Christian talked about for the existing buildings.
Provision for existing only. Okay.
Yeah, same thing, that I'm fine to not include multifamily as of right, but to those that are pre-existing, look at what level of those pre-existing we want to actually make conforming from their current non-conforming status.
I agree with that.
Yeah, what I hear people saying is that it's, kind of okay to get to twos, but much higher, you're kind of altering the neighborhood. And so you lean toward the, if they, lose 50%, they have more time to rebuild, but you're not giving it as a matter of right everywhere, which would just encourage it further, right? That's what I'm hearing. And I'm in the same boat.
Are we still talking about doing this broadly across the entire city in all of R15?
Where I was going to get now that we kind of know what uses we're talking about and what provisions. So then the next one I wanted to go back to was what we had been discussing, George, about adjacency and proximity. So I'll bring the land use map up one more time just so we can kind of see where those are. So I think if the council is leaning towards comfortability with kind of these three larger R15 that do have the existing kind of mix of residential densities in it, I think Nick and I can work on trying to craft language for that. Unless someone feels very strongly about also finding a way to include Mead, or if they feel strongly about any other extent of one of these three districts. But I think Nick and I can and Christian can kind of go through what the mechanisms are, but I guess, let's start with here. Mead, I don't know, does anyone feel strongly about including or excluding that district?
Well, I guess I'm in close proximity to that.
If you want somebody else to, Pam, I would say I would exclude it just based on the character of that neighborhood. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I don't know how much multifamily or more than single dwelling, they're small lots.
Yeah, some are larger. I mean, I kind of didn't have a problem with excluding it, looking at the other areas that we were looking at too.
I can also make a pretty good case that because we're looking at zoning more holistically, very close to that area, that until we as a council have a theory and a direction of travel there, that it makes sense not to change Mead at this point.
Yeah, and I would add, I think historically, Mead might always have been R15, and that the RD3 switching to R15 is in those other areas, which is why we've got a lot of twos in those areas, right? Because they were permitted.
Yeah, and I know one of the two families on Mead it still might be, was more of a mother-daughter at the time.
I mean, I would still advocate for going back to the original, which we spoke about 2 weeks ago, the neighborhoods immediately adjacent to the T district. And so decreasing in size the three remaining areas that we're talking about, eliminating, not including anything east of, across from East Main Street, that area, and have it not go too far into the neighborhoods north and south of Main Street. I'm just wondering what the goal is. Is the goal of this to legitimize or make non-conforming conforming? Or is it to increase density closer to Main Street and thus increase housing options? Because if we left, if things were, if we came up with that, in terms of the non-conforming properties throughout the city, if we considered them not being lost if due to fire or other damage, the right to do that, I think I'm just afraid that we're opening a big can, not a can of worms. I mean, what we're trying to do is increase housing options, but I'm not sure, I'm not ready to do it across the board throughout the whole district.
Yeah, I think it's two-pronged, right? I think you're right, George, that it's both. It's legalizing existing uses that are part of the character of the neighborhood. And I think the other reason why we were looking at potentially the entire R15 district is the council has talked a lot about increasing this like light density, right, in terms of these 2s and 3s and things like that as a means to supplement all the development that you're seeing on Main Street with bigger multifamily buildings and mixed-use buildings, right, to up housing provisions in the city, specifically affordable housing. So I think the only reason why we started considering the whole R15 district is when you come at that from like a planning perspective, the first thing I do is look at land uses to say, okay, where, if we want to expand two-family housing, and where that can be built, because it's a very limited area in the city that it can currently be built legally. So if you want to expand that, the first thing you do is look at where is that not going to be out of context with existing characteristics of the neighborhood. And so that's the only reason why I do say, like, and again, this is up to the council to discuss, but the majority of these R15 districts, and this is in large part to the history that the mayor has provided to us, that is part of the existing characteristics. So if there's limited spaces within the city of Beacon that you are going to be able to kind of add two-family uses, I would say that the entire R15s in these areas do make the most sense from that data perspective.
And I agree with that. I just think we've taken a large leap from what we discussed 2 weeks ago to going, and I understand our goal is to consider allowing other housing options throughout the city, or at least through the R15. I'm just a fan of incremental change and seeing what the impacts of this would be on a smaller area.
Yeah. I mean, to take a step back, I do think we, or just to make you feel a little bit more comfortable, I do think we actually, although it's a larger area, I think the council, based on the comments, actually kind of did make the step a little bit more minimal, right? I think expanding the T district would have been a little bit of a bigger change, which is why I kind of recommended this option instead. Because I think that expanding the T district would have had a more impact on changing these neighborhoods immediately adjacent to Main Street than maybe the provisions we're talking about now within the R15. So bigger area, but not as drastic of a change, I don't think.
Yeah, I see the logic, but...
One thing, sorry, go ahead.
No, I just want to figure out what you guys think.
Yeah, one thing that I'm thinking about, because I appreciate you bringing this up, George, because I agree with one of the priorities is that first stage of bringing in, I've been saying this for a while, buildings that were built as multifamily get to continue to be multifamily, that have artificially, as the mayor said, for a period of time with purpose, turned into single family. That I think we're in pretty good agreement there. But one thing I'm thinking about in looking at this R15 map, and that I'd be curious to see, Natalie, in your analysis on, is how this maps against public transportation or other means of movement. Adding 1 or 2 units to a house may or may not have, it will have a traffic impact as long as we don't provide transportation alternatives to our residents. I can imagine in my mind where the Beacon Free Loop runs currently, and it's not completely out of whack here, but I want to make sure that while we're looking at increasing density, we're also looking at the ways in which we're increasing transportation alternatives to our residents.
Here.
And some of the far reaches on the mountainside and around Memorial Park are not really on transportation lines.
No, Mead Avenue is not on a free transportation line.
I
You'd
wish
have
it
to
were,
pay.
but yeah.
I mean, the one thing where I don't have as much of an issue to say, okay, for two-family, is because every one of them could have an ADU. So that's where I'm like thinking they could have a bigger place on it already that we've allowed with the ADUs. So to say two-family, is it a big change?
It's potentially could bring in more renters, which may not be a bad thing. Like right now, in order for me to convert my house into a two-family, I would still have to be, or someone would have to be the owner-occupier, whereas under what we're proposing, assuming I fall within this and we pass it, I could sell it to a developer and they can create 2 units and rent it out. So
Good point.
that's the main, and that may or may not affect the community character. I'm not suggesting that more rentals is a bad or a good thing. I'm just pointing that out as a thing that might change, might continue to shift in our community.
So Pam, that's an interesting, thought. Would we want to have an owner-occupied requirement on a two-family?
Would that just make it worse?
And I think we kind of have that with
Already have-
ADUs, because that's
yeah.
already 85% of our housing stock, so I don't know if we would, yeah.
Yeah, I would not. I don't really see, I think I don't care if both units are rentals. I think it's fine.
Just asking. Again, I don't have a strong view.
And you don't mind not owner occupied?
No, I'm thinking of like a duplex. I just don't see any reason why one of those units would have to be owner occupied. And I think there are a lot of people who do prefer renting, so having that option is a good one.
It increases housing stock.
Yeah.
George, did you have a thought about streets to limit this by?
Well, if we went back, I don't have the map in front of me from 2 weeks ago, but on the north side, I felt like the boundaries of that were good. On the south side, I was thinking maybe pushing it to Walcott, to Rombout. And that's, so it wouldn't be extreme, and we might revisit this if we opt to do a smaller area now. We could revisit this in a year and possibly expand it throughout the R15. I'm just a little hesitant to do it right now.
And what would the eastern boundary, so the eastern boundary would be basically the river, like you couldn't, the creek, you couldn't
yeah.
cross the creek?
Yeah.
Well, let me ask this, and this is a really good discussion. Well, if Christian came up with a way to adjust the language so that a pre-existing non-conforming use, has a fire, they have a longer time to build back, that would kind of stabilize the existing 2s and 3s. Is that a good enough starting point?
I'd be happy with that.
Mayor, just a point of order. That wouldn't allow you to do it because they're a non-conforming use. So like we had a 2-family burned down. It wasn't because of the time frame that they couldn't rebuild as a 2-family. It was because they were no longer allowed to build that. So I think somehow grandfathering, putting in that the existing uses would stay that up to a year if you rebuild is more, I think, what you need to do there. If you want to do that.
But yeah, Christian, can you weigh in on that? Is that an option for us?
Yeah, you could. I would like to look at it, but my first impression is, as we said with the multifamily, where you could have kind of, instead of just immediately eliminating the use upon destruction, you could have a period to recontinue that use upon destruction. And that could be limited to residential uses and a specific district.
Mayor, is your suggestion that our changes would be only to modify the zoning for this kind of fire use case and nothing else? Is that your suggestion?
I was just trying to actualize what George is suggesting, which is being incremental, and I'm thinking that might be the most incremental step, and then you see where you are in a year or two and you go from there, right?
Yeah. I guess to me that doesn't really do anything to alleviate some of the housing burden that we're trying to address. So to me, I don't really feel like that's worth.
But I think what Lee is saying is that throughout the R15, but limit the changes that we're talking about tonight to the boundaries that I'm suggesting. So you would be able to do, we don't have that map in front of us, but not throughout the city, not throughout R15, but areas just north and south of
Natalie,
of
do
Main
you have
Street.
the original map from 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, let me.
Because it
Yeah,
might be
but I think what
helpful
George
to look
explained
at
was
it.
pretty much on point in terms of expansion up to Verplank is where the north boundary, I'm pulling it up right now. Expansion up to Verplank, and then I think we had been discussing south of Main Street, Beacon Street, Catherine. I think what I heard George say was just a little bit further.
South Walnut, it goes to Beacon Street.
There's the original map, George.
Yeah, and I guess when I looked at that map, I thought maybe the southern area could be expanded a little bit further to Rombout, possibly.
Well, I mean, I think I hear George, I hear the concerns. I think, and then I think the goal is also, I think there's a little bit more beyond just allowing, destroyed buildings to be rebuilt, right? We want to go a little bit step further than that. But I think, I feel like I have enough to sit and try and think about what is a dimensional or distance or adjacency stipulation that makes sense to right now not necessarily be the full R15 district, but be areas that we can show in terms of relation to, a walkable Main Street, transit lines, proximity to the CMS, things like that, with provisions for kind of multifamily and other things that are in existence in those further out regions. So I think I have enough to craft something that we can bring back to you that you all can respond to.
Okay, yeah, and I think if we're going to stick with the proximity to Main Street, I absolutely agree that that area to the south should be broader.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd like to see more there, and I think that area can certainly handle some duplexes or whatever.
Just a quick question, Natalie, in terms of usage in R15.
Yep.
If I'm reading it correctly, it says farm and horticultural nurseries are allowed?
No fur-bearing animals, I believe.
Is that what it is?
I think so.
There was some.
Surprised that those are.
Chickens are okay, fur-bearing
do it,
animals,
George.
no.
Don't look at me.
Or no humans? Yes. I think I live in the chicken district. It's like,
And
Yeah, so farm is permitted in the R1, not actually in the T, but in the R1 districts is permitted.
but no chickens without a permit.
that's right.
This could be your
Get
next
chicken
career.
permit.
Think
Well, I
about
guess we should look at the definite, I mean, it's unrelated necessarily to this conversation, but we should look at the definition of farm and horticultural nurseries.
I agree. I think we need more of them.
it. You could be a ginger farmer or something high value.
And Natalie, if it's not too much trouble, if we could include
Yeah.
the bus map on our next version we're looking at, I think that would be helpful context.
I agree.
Thank you.
All right, are we all good onwards? All right. I guess,
We're in workshop, so we can just go to the next one,
yeah, I was going to say the chief has to stay till the
to the vote and the
till the
swearing in.
vote, yeah. So now we're proposed amendments to the 2025
And this
budget.
hopefully will be quick. We have two proposed amendments, one to the general fund, the second to the sewer fund. The one for the general fund is to cover the cost of the Beacon Engine Firehouse litigation, both of which the city prevailed on. It did cost us $33,589 that weren't budgeted. We're proposing to move money out of three funds, the MTA payroll tax, which many of you know, state legislation exempted us from that. So we had put that into the budget for 2025, and we're allocating the unused portion of that. Also, we had property assessment settlement in the amount of $4,099 and civil action expense in $10,000. And then the sewer fund is for overtime, and basically we're proposing to move money from the regular salary line to overtime. This was overtime that was the result of two openings we have. We have a senior mechanic and a maintenance helper that have been open. We've been advertising that. We're just not getting a lot of focus on it, so we've been covering those shifts with overtime, which isn't bad. We're actually still ahead of where we would have been if we hired both. We're also doing more staffing of overnights when we have intense rains that are predicted, so that we make sure the plant doesn't go offline or have issues. So we will be adjusting in our budget next year for this consideration, but this year we need to move $55,000 from regular salaries to overtime.
And did you say the positions are still unfilled? Are they in the process of being filled?
We're advertising the position. The senior mechanic is a very specialized position, and we're actually looking at what the compensation for that should be with the union to see if we can increase that to make it more attractive.
Okay.
These are positions that there's not like a lot of widespread training for. It's like on-the-job training. So we've just been covering some of the shifts with overtime and then using outside contractors to do some of the work that we can't do in-house. But we're trying to hire it.
Any other questions?
No.
All right.
Okay. And then we have Chief Tom Lucchese here to
Yes.
propose a new appointment that we're really excited about.
It looks like our audience has very good timing.
Yes. Chief, can I ask you to come up and speak about our proposed appointment?
Just give you a minute.
Yeah.
Good evening, City Council members. I saw the mayor on remotely, City Administrator White. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to introduce Daniel Burke. Mr. Burke is a lifelong resident of the area. He's a longtime volunteer assistant chief to Village of Fishkill Fire Department, and he tentatively would be joining us from the Arlington Fire District. Coincidentally, tonight will not be the first night that Mr. Burke will appear before a City Council. In 2012, he was recognized and awarded the Medal of Valor by the City Council for his heroic and life-saving actions at a fire he responded to as a Village of Fishkill firefighter on Ackerman Street in the city. At that fire, with a report of an occupant trapped, Mr. Burke ascended a second-floor window, and under extreme fire conditions of high heat and zero visibility, he entered that window and began searching for the trapped occupant. Fortunately, the occupant was located quickly, dragged to the window, brought down the ladder, where CPR was immediately administered. Because of Mr. Burke's actions, that resident has fully recovered and is alive today. It's not often that a new employee enters a firehouse already well known by all, very well liked, and very well respected. I strongly feel he's a great candidate for the fire department, and more importantly, City of Beacon. Any questions?
No.
No, we agree, or I'll agree that he seems like an excellent fit.
Yeah.
So no questions about his fit.
No, very exciting.
All right.
And then, Mayor, we have one additional resolution on the agenda that we had to add.
Yes.
I think you have that.
The authorization of the sale of 425 Main Street in the City of Beacon, and Christian is going to introduce that.
Yeah,
That is
thank
not
you.
on our
So,
agenda packets.
This afternoon at about 12:30, we were notified by the title company that they request a resolution from the city council specifying the name of the purchaser and the purchase amount for the sale of 425 Main Street, the former Maze Hook and Ladder. The council had previously approved the sale as well as a negative declaration pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act in March. However, for title insurance purposes, they're requesting that the specific buyer and price be listed. It was not previously listed in May because the buyer had not yet signed the purchase agreement, and so there was always a possibility it would not go through, but now we're at the tail end of it.
And Christian, is this the exact same resolution that we already passed, simply adding in those two data points?
Yes, the council will also be reaffirming its secret determination. There have been no changes in circumstances or new information that has arisen since May, and also reaffirming its determination that the firehouse is a surplus property and its sale.
Thank you.
And this was emailed, if anybody did want to look at that.
And we've had trouble with Granicus, which is what allows us to update the agenda. So I don't know, Ben, is it Are we up yet on that or not?
No, but I will try again before I leave tonight.
So we've been trying since mid-afternoon to update that.
Is there any, I guess, question for you, Christian, any issue with us approving this tonight if we haven't been able to share it with the public as we have the rest of our agenda?
No, there's no substantive or material changes in circumstance or anything. The fact that this was not able to be placed on the agenda is really not any of the city's fault. It was the title company's request earlier today, and also because of Granicus. It wasn't able to be posted, but it will be posted. It's substantially the same as prior. The only real material difference is it now names the purchaser and the purchase amount.
Great. Yeah, I just request for us as we're passing it, if we could just have a couple minutes, if we haven't already, just to read through it. I'd like to do
Yeah,
that.
and
then.
maybe I think we've done this in the past, put it up on the screen for the public to read it as well. I know it takes a minute, but it feels like important due diligence before we take
We don't have to
vote.
do that now, we can do that when
Yeah.
we get to that item on the
Yeah,
agenda.
he has you have a redlined copy of the old resolution and the new resolution, so that I think would help, if you could have that ready to go, Christian.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And again, we're lining up to close by the end of September. We're doing easements and lot line adjustments, and they can't get title insurance unless we pass a new resolution.
Great.
It's the same buyer we announced months ago for the same price.
Any other questions before we end?
I'm just, somebody can tell me if I have to ask this question when the meeting starts. Do we want to adjust our agenda to have Resolution 81 at the top? Just because these people are all here, and I see a young child who might be past their bedtime. Are we allowed to do that?
Christian, or
Perhaps between roll call and public comment?
Yeah, I believe the rules of procedure just require a simple motion.
Okay.
so
Should I
think
make
we
that
would-
motion in workshop or when the meeting starts?
Once the meeting starts.
Okay, thank you.
A motion to alter the agenda.
Yeah.
Right. Great. So we're doing that later.
We're doing that.
After you call us.
All right, so
Yes.
we'll convene the meeting.
Okay, we are going to adjourn our workshop, and I'm assuming we're just going to plow through.
Yep,
and-
no breaks, let's
Yes.
If we need a motion to adjourn the workshop, I'll make the motion.
Okay, you made a motion to adjourn, we got a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right.